the employment and the legal aspects there as the fallout from P&O's sacking of 800 staff yesterday continues. What options are there for the people who've lost their jobs? Well, let's speak to someone who might know a bit more than we do, our employment lawyer, David Martyn. Good afternoon, David.
Hi, Fiona.
Just simply, if you can explain to us, has P&O breached employment laws?
It's extremely likely. I mean, there's only one circumstance in which they haven't breached the law, and that is if they can argue that UK employment law does not apply to these workers. I mean, as far as we understand it, most of the workers are employed out of a Jersey-based company, and there may be arguments around whether UK employment law applies. But if it does apply, then it is absolutely clear that the law has been breached in many, many different respects in the way that they've been treated here.
And David, are you acting as a lawyer for the RMT union?
We have, not formally, but we do advise a number of different unions.
Okay, I've got you. So you're used to this type of situation,
we've seen a number of circumstances. Yeah. Normally we see this issue when companies have gone into administration. So there is no other choice. Okay. There is no money left. Now, it's very unusual to see a circumstance where there is actually money left and there is still an ongoing company, but the company is taking a decision to dismiss people in this way. And that's the strange thing about this situation, where there's an ongoing business, but they're still taking the decision to not consult with trade unions and other organisations, which they really should be doing in these circumstances.
It's such an uncertain time, and many of the staff we're hearing are still very much in shock. We heard Duncan Kennedy, a reporter down there in Dover, talking to some of them who said it feels almost like a bereavement. What advice should they be given, or could you be giving them at this time?
I mean, I think most of them should probably look to raise claims, and that will give them some degree of compensation. The Scottish Government also have the PACE scheme, which provides advice and support on CV writing, how to access opportunities, and I'm sure the Scottish Government will be in touch with those workers as soon as possible. One of the difficulties here, though, is because no notice was given about this to the Scottish Government, all of these support services that would normally be in place, they're not in place, and that's why everything the law does is designed to prevent these sudden emergency redundancies taking place so that support services can be put in place, and I'm afraid they aren't in this circumstance.
And just for clarity, David, does employment law between Scotland and England differ, and could this cause confusion?
On this point, no. It's very likely that the position is going to be the same for everybody from Dover up to Cairnryan.
Okay, and we've talked, I mean, even today I've been hearing about various debates about this fire and rehire, or fire and hire. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, normally that happens if you're going to dismiss people from their old contracts and employ them on worse new contracts. Now, this is a strange variation of that. This seems to be a fire that don't even rehire different people. So it's a very unusual tactic, and it really doesn't make a huge amount of sense when you look at it. I mean, one can only imagine that, P&O have looked at this and said, okay, we may be in some degree of legal difficulty with this, but that we think is going to cost us less than continuing to employ the people on the same terms that they had.
And the unions seem to be suggesting that they are hiring foreign labour. Is there any substance to this?
I mean, there'd be nothing wrong with that if they did do that. I think the difficulty is if they're bringing in workers to do exactly the same jobs that the existing workers were doing, and there's been no reduction in the, no intention not to provide the service, and as far as we understand it, they still want to run their services. The difficulty is what the law says is that you should move the workers who are working currently for P&O to work for that, whoever the new employer is who's going to provide the labour. That's the TUPE regulations would say that those jobs should be preserved. Now, if that is the situation, that doesn't seem to have been applied either. So a very, very confusing situation legally.
And is this a lengthy process for the workers to go through this?
Unfortunately, I think it's unlikely that in a situation like this we would see any form of court resolution with the number of people involved and the volume of cases going through employment tribunals. I think, unfortunately, we're looking at 9 to 12 months minimum before the workers see any money through the tribunal process.